When the billionaire owner of Silvergate Equestrian ordered her $12 million stallion destroyed, every expert in the arena agreed until the poor single father they had mocked all morning stepped into the sand with empty hands and said, "Don't punish him for telling the truth." They laughed because Caleb Reed was only the quiet horse trainer in muddy boots, the man who cleaned stalls before sunrise, packed his daughter's lunch with one hand, and never raised his voice even when wealthy people treated him like part of the barn. They did not know he had once negotiated with armed men, grieving parents, broken soldiers, and terrified children before he ever learned to negotiate with horses. They did not know that his calm was not weakness, it was training. And when the stallion lowered his head to Caleb after 3 minutes of silence, the billionaire CEO realized the man she had looked down upon might be the only person alive who understood the secret buried inside her perfect stable. Caleb Reed woke before the alarm because fathers with sick children rarely trusted clocks. At 4:12 a.m., the apartment above the old feed store was still dark, the radiator ticking like a tired insect, the kitchen window fogged white from the cold outside and the cheap heat inside. He lay still for 4 seconds, listening. No cough from the bedroom, no wheeze, no small feet on the floor. Good. Lily was still sleeping. Caleb sat up quietly, rubbed a hand over his face, and reached for the folded barn clothes hanging over the chair. Faded jeans, thermal shirt, old canvas jacket, boots that never fully lost the smell of hay and mud no matter how hard he scrubbed them. On the tiny kitchen table sat 3 things he checked every morning before coffee: Lily's inhaler, the envelope from the pediatric clinic, and the photo of his late wife, Hannah, standing beside a gray mare with one hand on the horse's neck and the other resting on a very pregnant belly. Hannah had always said horses could hear what people tried to hide. Caleb used to smile at that. After she died, he stopped smiling at most things, but he never stopped believing her. He filled Lily's thermos with warm oatmeal, sliced an apple into uneven pieces, and packed the little lunchbox with the purple sticker she had refused to remove, even after it peeled at the corners. A sleepy voice came from the bedroom. "Dad?" Caleb turned. Lily stood in the doorway in oversized socks, brown curls tangled around her face, clutching a stuffed pony named Sergeant Pickles. She was 6 years old, too small for the courage she kept trying to carry. "You're supposed to be asleep," Caleb said softly. "Sergeant Pickles heard you thinking. That horse talks too much. He says you're worried." Caleb crossed the room and crouched in front of her. "I'm making oatmeal. That's not worry." Lily narrowed her eyes, a look so much like Hannah's it still hurt. "Your eyebrows are doing the math thing." Caleb smoothed his brow with exaggerated seriousness. "Better?" "No, now they're lying politely." He laughed under his breath and pulled her gently into his arms. She smelled like baby shampoo and old blankets. For a moment, before the day began demanding things from him, Caleb let himself be only a father, not a widower, not a man behind on clinic payments, not a trainer at a luxury stable where people spent more on saddle soap than he spent on groceries in a week, just a father holding the reason he kept standing. Lily leaned back. "Is the scary horse still mad?" Caleb knew she meant Midnight Atlas, the black stallion at Silvergate Equestrian, the horse worth $12 million on paper, and worth nothing to the men who had already decided fear was the same as danger. "He's not mad," Caleb said. "He's trying to say something. But rich people don't listen to horses. Some do. Do they listen to you?" Caleb looked at the clinic envelope, then at her. "Not yet." Lily touched his cheek with her small hand. "Use your quiet voice." "My quiet voice?" "The one that makes angry horses remember they have legs instead of thunder." Caleb smiled then, despite himself. "That is a very specific voice. Mom used it too." The room changed, not loudly, but enough. Caleb kissed her forehead. "Yes, she did." Mrs. Alvarez knocked at 4:45. Letting herself in with a key and a paper bag of sweet rolls she claimed were for Lily but ate half of herself. She lived downstairs, ran the feed store with the moral authority of a judge, and had become Lily's morning guardian without ever asking permission. "You look like a ghost wearing denim," she told Caleb as he pulled on his jacket. "Good morning to you too. You eat?" "At the barn." "That means no." She shoved a roll into his hand. "Take. Chew. Survive. In that order." Lily hugged him at the door. Don't let the fancy people make you small. Caleb looked down at her, the words landing deeper than she knew. Who taught you that? You did, but I improved it. Mrs. Alvarez nodded. She did. Caleb kissed Lily's hair. I'll be back after evening feed. Tell the scary horse I said use inside hooves. I'll pass that along. The drive to Silvergate took 26 minutes through fog and dark fields, past old barns being swallowed by new estates, past white fences that looked innocent only if you had never repaired one in January. Silvergate Equestrian rose from the hills like a private kingdom, heated indoor arena, glass-walled viewing lounge, imported stone stables, bronze horse statues at the entrance, security gates that opened faster for luxury SUVs than for Caleb's old pickup. He parked behind the hay shed where staff vehicles belonged, finished the sweet roll before Mrs. Alvarez could somehow sense he had not eaten it, and stepped into the cold morning smell of horses. That smell had saved him more times than people knew. Hay, leather, dust, grain, animal warmth, honest things. A horse never pretended kindness for cameras. A horse never smiled while hiding a knife in policy language. People were more complicated. Horses were clearer. Caleb started in Barn C, the rehab wing, where the horses nobody wanted photographed were kept until they became useful again. He checked water buckets, wrapped a gelding's swollen leg, adjusted the feed for a mare recovering from ulcers, and stood for nearly 10 minutes outside Midnight Atlas's stall without opening the door. The stallion was at the far corner, black coat shining even in the low barn light, head high, ears sharp, one front hoof resting lightly as if he were ready to explode in any direction. On the stall door hung 3 warning signs, 2 red ribbons, and a clipboard full of notes written by people who described behavior but never asked why. Aggressive, unpredictable, handler, unsafe, sedation recommended, termination review pending. Caleb read the last line twice and felt his jaw tighten. Morning, Atlas, he said quietly. The stallion's eye rolled toward him. Not wild, not empty, listening. Caleb did not move closer. Negotiation began before anyone spoke. It began with distance, angle, breathing, exits, dignity. You did not corner a terrified animal and then call its panic proof of guilt. You did not do that to people either, though boardrooms had built entire industries around it. I know, Caleb murmured. Too many hands, too much noise, nobody asking the right question. Atlas blew air through his nostrils, hard and low. Caleb lowered his gaze a fraction, not submissive, not challenging, simply removing pressure. Behind him, a young groom named Jamie whispered, You're the only one he doesn't try to kill. Caleb did not turn. He hasn't tried to kill anyone. He broke Carter's wrist. Carter hit him with the lead chain. Jamie went quiet. Caleb turned then. A reaction is not a confession. Jamie looked toward the viewing lounge where lights were already coming on. They're bringing in the CEO today. Big decision meeting. Caleb knew. Everyone knew. Evelyn Hart, billionaire owner of Silvergate Holdings, and the woman who had bought the entire equestrian operation as part sport, part investment, part public image, was coming to decide whether Midnight Atlas lived long enough to compete, sell, breed, or die. She had inherited a technology empire, expanded into luxury wellness resorts, and recently decided elite horses made excellent branding. She understood numbers, leverage, public optics, and silence. Caleb had seen her twice from a distance. Tall, elegant, dark-haired, always in cream or white coats that never seemed to collect dust. People moved differently when she entered a room. Faster, smaller. Caleb had spent enough years in crisis rooms to recognize fear disguised as respect. Victor's already here, Jamie said. That made Caleb look toward the main barn. Victor Langford, Silvergate's head performance director, was the sort of horseman rich people liked because he used expensive words for control. He called fear resistance, exhaustion, laziness, and obedience partnership. He hated Caleb because Caleb had no degree from Europe, no sponsor jacket, no polished accent, and no patience for cruelty renamed discipline. Then keep the young grooms away from Atlas, Caleb said. Victor will want a show, Jamie swallowed. You think he'll push him? I think people who need to prove control usually create the danger they warned everyone about. By after Dridi, Silvergate no longer felt like a barn. It felt like a courtroom with sand footing. Black SUVs lined the drive. Investors, veterinarians, bloodstock agents, security men, and 2 documentary camera operators filled the heated viewing lounge. Outside the indoor arena, staff whispered and straightened jackets. Evelyn Hart arrived exactly on time, stepping from a black Range Rover in a cream wool coat, leather gloves, and boots that had never seen mud unless mud had signed a waiver first. She was beautiful in the cold way expensive architecture was beautiful. Deliberate, polished, hard to imagine touching without permission. Victor met her at the entrance with a smile too wide to be honest. "Miss Hart, thank you for coming personally. I wish the circumstances were better." Evelyn's eyes moved across the stable, taking inventory. "So do I." Midnight Atlas was supposed to anchor the international campaign. Not live, Caleb thought. Anchor, campaign. Victor lowered his voice just enough for others to lean in. "Unfortunately, the animal has become a liability. 3 handlers injured, 1 sponsor threatening withdrawal, insurers nervous. I've brought in Dr. Bell, the European behavior consultant, and both agree the safest outcome may be humane destruction." The phrase moved through the barn like perfume sprayed over rot. Humane destruction. Caleb kept wrapping a lead rope on its hook, his face still. Evelyn's gaze passed over him once, paused on his muddy boots, then moved on. "And this is?" Victor glanced back with annoyance. "Caleb Reed, rehab staff. Useful with low-level cases. He has a sentimental attachment to the horse." Caleb said nothing. Evelyn looked at him again. "Do you disagree with the assessment, Mr. Reed?" The barn fell quiet. Victor smiled because he expected Caleb either to submit or embarrass himself. Caleb turned fully, rope still in hand. "I disagree with the question." Evelyn's brows lifted slightly. "Excuse me?" "The question being asked is whether the horse is dangerous enough to destroy. The first question should be what happened before he became dangerous." Victor's smile thinned. "With respect, Miss Hart, this is exactly the problem. Caleb anthropomorphizes behavior instead of managing risk." Caleb looked at Victor, then back at Evelyn. Managing risk without understanding cause is just moving fear to a more expensive room. A few grooms looked down to hide their reactions. Evelyn's expression cooled. She was not used to staff speaking in sentences that did not bend. "Your qualifications?" Victor laughed softly. "He gentles rescues and teaches children's ponies not to bite." Caleb could have answered with the credentials he never used. Former police crisis negotiator, consultant for equine trauma rehabilitation, called quietly to 3 major barns after accidents they did not want public, the man who had saved a senator's daughter's horse and signed an NDA instead of taking credit because Lily's hospital bill had been due. But credentials were bait. In a hostile room, proving yourself too early gave opponents a target and allies an excuse not to listen. Caleb kept his voice even. "My qualification is that the horse still has both eyes on the nearest exit, and no one has asked why he stopped trusting the center of the arena." Evelyn studied him for 1 second longer than comfort allowed. "Victor?" Victor's tone sharpened. "Midnight Atlas has been examined. No fracture, no infection, no neurological deficit. His aggression is behavioral." "Behavior is communication," Caleb said. "Not always," Victor snapped. "Sometimes it is bad blood." Caleb's eyes shifted to him. Bad blood is what people say when they want inheritance to carry blame. The temperature in the barn seemed to drop. Evelyn's mouth tightened, not in anger exactly, but recognition of a sentence with more under it than a horse. Victor stepped closer. "Careful, Reed." Caleb did not move. "I am." The decision meeting began in the indoor arena at 9:15. Midnight Atlas was brought in by 2 handlers in helmets, both gripping the lead lines too tight, both afraid and trying not to show it. The stallion danced sideways, neck arched, nostrils flared, hooves striking sand with explosive force. Cameras watched from the rail. Victor narrated calmly for Evelyn and the investors, turning every sign of stress into evidence for his recommendation. "As you can see, the horse cannot tolerate standard handling pressure. He escalates without provocation. We have attempted desensitization, sedation-assisted retraining, round pen work, pressure release correction, all unsuccessful. The risk to human safety and brand reputation is significant. Brand reputation. Caleb stood near the far gate with Jamie and 3 staff members, saying nothing, watching everything. The left handler's rope angle was wrong. The right handler kept stepping into the stallion's blind pressure zone. Victor stood too close to the center, forcing Atlas's attention to split. Doc Bell, the expensive consultant, waved a flag on a training stick, and the horse exploded backward. One handler fell, the second yanked hard. Atlas reared, striking air, not flesh, but close enough for the viewing lounge to gasp. Security moved. Evelyn stood behind the glass, face hardening into decision. Victor raised both hands as if calming the room he had helped ignite. Clear the arena. The handlers scrambled out. Atlas spun to the far wall, trembling with fury, foam at his neck. Victor turned toward Evelyn. This cannot continue. She descended from the viewing lounge into the arena aisle. Every step controlled. Cameras following. What are the options? Immediate removal from training. And after? Victor held the perfect pause. Given liability and quality of life concerns, humane euthanasia may be the responsible choice. Jamie whispered. No. Caleb heard the crack in the young groom's voice. Evelyn looked through the rail at the stallion. For the first time, something human crossed her face, not tenderness, not yet, but uncertainty. He was my father's final acquisition, she said quietly. Victor softened his voice. Then your father would not want him suffering. Caleb looked at Victor. There it was. Not horse logic. Human leverage. Father. Legacy. Loss. Victor was not negotiating with Evelyn's reason. He was negotiating with her grief. Caleb had seen it in hostage scenes, hospital hallways, custody disputes, late-night bridges. People did not always force you with threats. Sometimes they used the dead to make surrender sound like love. Evelyn looked down. Prepare the paperwork. The words were quiet, but they landed like a gunshot. Caleb stepped forward. No. Every face turned. Victor's eyes flashed with satisfaction first, then anger. Remove him. Caleb did not raise his voice. Miss Hart, if you destroy that horse now, you are not ending suffering. You are destroying the witness. Evelyn stared at him. The witness? Something happened to him. Victor laughed. Enough. Caleb looked only at Evelyn. You know what manipulation sounds like. You heard it just now. Her expression changed by 1 degree. Mr. Reed, you are very close to losing your job. I know. Then choose your next words carefully. Caleb stepped to the rail, still outside the arena, still giving Atlas distance. Your consultant did not say your father would want the truth. He said your father would not want suffering. That sounds compassionate. It is also a way to make you feel disloyal if you ask for proof. The arena went silent. Victor snapped. This is outrageous. Caleb continued. In negotiation, that is called grief framing. You attach compliance to love for someone who cannot speak anymore. Evelyn's face went pale with anger. You do not know anything about my father. No, Caleb said, but I know when the dead are being used to rush the living. For a moment, no one breathed. Then Evelyn said, 5 minutes. Victor turned. Miss Hart. 5 minutes, Mr. Reed. Tell me what you think happened. Caleb looked at Atlas. Not from here. Meaning? Meaning I need the arena cleared, all cameras off, no flags, no chains, no center pressure, no one at the gate except me. Victor barked a laugh. Absolutely not. Caleb nodded once. Then you have already chosen performance over truth. Evelyn looked at the cameras, then at the horse, then at Caleb. Cameras off. The documentary crew protested. She did not look at them. Off. Victor stepped in front of her. This is dangerous. Caleb said. Yes, mostly because everyone keeps needing to be right in front of him. Evelyn's eyes remained on Caleb. You get 3 minutes. Caleb opened the arena gate. Jamie whispered, Caleb. Caleb handed him his phone. If Lily calls, answer. Jamie looked terrified. What do I say? Tell her I'm using my quiet voice. Then Caleb stepped into the arena and closed the gate behind him. Midnight Atlas turned toward him like a storm given shape. The stallion's body was coiled, nostrils wide, ears cutting forward and back. Caleb did not walk toward him. He walked toward the center, then angled away, reducing pressure, shoulders loose, hands empty, eyes soft. Behind the glass, wealthy people watched a man they had mocked stand unprotected in front of an animal they had condemned. Caleb stopped 40 feet away. He breathed out. Atlas stamped. Caleb lowered his head slightly and turned his body 3/4 away. "I'm not here to win," he said, voice barely carrying. "I'm here to hear it." Atlas threw his head. Caleb did not react. Too many hands, too much center, something at the left side. Not pain now, memory. Victor whispered something behind the rail. Caleb lifted one hand without looking back, not to silence him as a subordinate, but to preserve the room as a negotiator. Strangely, Victor stopped. The stallion took one step, then another, not toward Caleb exactly. Toward the space Caleb had left open. Caleb stepped back before Atlas needed to ask. The horse froze. "Good," Caleb murmured. "You ask. I answer." Evelyn watched with her hand at her throat. Caleb saw only the horse. The left eye was guarded. Not blind, guarded. He remembered the failed rearing, the refusal near the center, the panic at the flag, the way Atlas avoided one patch of sand near the north side. "Jamie," Caleb called quietly, "was Atlas ever worked at night in here?" Jamie looked at Victor, then at Caleb. "Sometimes. Before Wellington trials." "With what equipment?" Victor snapped. "This is not relevant." Caleb did not look away from the horse. "Jamie?" The young groom swallowed. The overhead speakers, artificial crowd noise, flash panels, sponsor simulation. Evelyn's head turned toward Victor. "Flash panels?" Victor's jaw tightened. Standard desensitization. Caleb took another slow step back as Atlas lowered his head a fraction. "Where were they placed?" Jamie pointed toward the north wall. "There. The same patch of sand." Caleb nodded. "Who ran the session when he first flipped?" Jamie's eyes filled with fear. "I wasn't," Victor said. "Enough." "Ethan, no." Caleb's calm sharpened, and the room felt it. "Do not make the boy carry your answer." Evelyn's voice was ice. "Victor." Victor looked at her. "An accident occurred. Minor equipment malfunction. It was handled." Caleb turned slightly then, enough to see Evelyn. "Was it documented?" No one answered. Atlas took 2 more steps toward him, not gentle, not safe, but no longer exploding. Caleb lifted his palm low, not touching, just present. "You are not crazy," he whispered to the horse. "You are remembering the room that hurt you." The stallion's head lowered another inch. In the viewing lounge, one investor muttered, "Is this some kind of trick?" Evelyn did not respond. Caleb shifted slowly toward the north wall. Atlas followed at a distance, trembling. Near the arena boards, half buried under freshly raked sand, Caleb saw a small black shard. He crouched carefully, keeping his body angled, and picked it up between 2 fingers. Burned plastic, the broken edge of a flash panel casing. He lifted it for Evelyn to see. "Ebb. You didn't have a dangerous horse," he said. "You had a cover-up." Victor went red. "That proves nothing." Caleb stood, eyes still calm, voice still low. "Then you won't mind preserving the training footage." Evelyn turned toward him slowly. "There is footage?" Caleb looked at the rafters, at the arena cameras, at the private training booth. "There is always footage in rich barns. The question is who gets to delete it." Victor moved toward the side door. Caleb's eyes flicked once to Jamie. Jamie stepped into the doorway before he knew he had decided to be brave. Evelyn saw it. So did everyone else. For the first time, the power in the room shifted away from titles and toward facts. Midnight Atlas stopped 10 feet from Caleb and blew out a long, shaking breath. Caleb did not touch him. Not yet. Consent mattered, even with a horse. Evelyn looked from the stallion to the shard in Caleb's hand, then to Victor. "Lock the office," she said. Victor forced a laugh. "Evelyn, this is absurd." "Miss Hart," she corrected. The title landed like a gate closing. Security moved. Victor's smile died. Caleb remained where he was, still inside the arena, still close enough to the stallion that one wrong move could break bone. Evelyn stepped to the rail. Her voice changed when she spoke to Caleb now. Not soft, not friendly, but stripped of dismissal. "Mr. Reed, can you get him out safely?" Caleb looked at Atlas. The stallion looked back, ears forward now, body still shaking but no longer blind with panic. "Maybe," Caleb said. "But not if you need it to look impressive." Evelyn swallowed. "I need it true." Caleb nodded. "Then everybody stops performing." He turned slightly away from Atlas and lowered his hand. The stallion took one step closer, then another. In the silence of the most expensive arena in the state, the horse they had condemned walked toward the poor single father they had laughed at, and every powerful person behind the glass began to understand that Caleb Reed had not entered the arena to tame an animal. He had entered it to negotiate with a truth they had been trying to kill. Midnight Atlas stood 10 feet from Caleb Reed in the center of the arena, trembling hard enough that the muscles along his black shoulder flickered under the lights. But he did not strike, did not rear, did not run. That alone should have been enough to change the room, yet wealthy rooms rarely surrendered quickly. Behind the glass, investors who had moments ago agreed the stallion should be destroyed now looked uncomfortable, as if the horse had committed the rude act of surviving in front of their certainty. Victor Langford stood near the side rail with his jaw clenched, his face still polished but his eyes burning. Evelyn Hart remained at the arena fence, one hand resting on the top rail, watching Caleb with a kind of controlled suspicion that told him she had not trusted him, not yet, but she had stopped dismissing him. For men like Caleb, that was often the first open door. Not respect, not belief, just a pause in contempt. He kept his attention mostly on Atlas, because the horse had earned more honesty than the people had. "Easy," Caleb murmured. "Not as a command, but as an offer. Nobody's asking you to prove anything." Atlas blew out through his nostrils, lowered his head another inch, then flicked his left ear toward the north wall where the burned shard had been buried in the sand. Caleb saw it and stored it. A horse's body kept minutes the way courtrooms kept transcripts. Every glance, every shift, every refusal had a timestamp if you knew how to read it. He took one slow step backward, opening the path toward the gate, and Atlas followed half a step before stopping again, suspicious of invitation. Caleb did not pull. He had no rope in his hand, no chain, no whip, no flag, no tool that wealthy men could mistake for authority. Only breathing, angle, distance, and patience. The same four things had kept people alive in apartments with broken locks, in courthouse stairwells, in motel bathrooms, where desperate fathers had held knives and called it protection. You did not save anyone by winning fast. You saved them by making the next safe choice feel possible. "You can say no," Caleb said softly, "but you don't have to say it with thunder." Jamie, still blocking the office door with shaking courage, whispered from the rail. "He's listening," Victor snapped. "The horse is exhausted. That is not listening." Caleb did not turn. Exhaustion does not lower the head toward the person who gave space. Fear does. Evelyn heard that. Caleb knew because her eyes moved from the horse to Victor. "Mr. Langford," she said, "why was there burned plastic in my arena?" Victor's answer came too quickly. "Training equipment breaks. Panels crack. It happens. Why was it buried? The footing is dragged daily. Debris can be missed. And the footage?" Victor's smile came back, smaller, sharp at the corners. "I'm sure the office system has routine overwrites. We can check, but I would caution against building accusations on barn gossip and a piece of plastic." Caleb took another step backward. Atlas followed one full step this time. The arena made a sound, then not applause, not speech, but a collective intake of breath. Evelyn did not look away from Victor. "Lock the office," I said. Security moved toward the training office. Victor's shoulders stiffened. "Miss Hart, with respect, that office contains proprietary performance data, veterinary reports, client materials, and insurance documents. Staff do not have authorization." Caleb finally looked at Evelyn. "He is naming categories to make the room afraid of opening the drawer." Victor turned on him. "You are a stable employee." "Yes." "You clean stalls." "Also, yes." "Then stop pretending you understand legal risk." Caleb looked back at Atlas before answering. "Legal risk is what people talk about when moral risk has already happened." Jamie's mouth fell slightly open. A groom near the wash stall made the sign of the cross, as if Caleb had just chosen unemployment in public. Evelyn's face tightened, but this time not at Caleb. She turned to her head of security. Secure the office. No one deletes, removes, or edits anything until my outside counsel reviews it. Victor stepped in front of the office corridor. This is unnecessary. Security did not shove him, but they did not slow either. The head guard, a broad woman named Denise, said, "Sir, step aside." Victor did not. Caleb saw the shift before anyone else did. Right shoulder back, left foot angled. Hand moving toward his inside jacket pocket. Not for a weapon necessarily, but for a phone. Phones were weapons in places like this. One message could erase evidence faster than a match could burn paper. Caleb lifted his voice, still calm. "Miss Hart, ask him to put both hands where your security can see them." Everyone froze. Victor glared. "Are you accusing me of something?" Caleb did not take the bait. "I'm preserving everyone's safety." Evelyn looked at Victor's hand. Victor. For the first time that morning, Victor looked truly naked. Not physically, worse. Procedurally. His confidence depended on everyone else feeling unsure. Caleb had named the motion, and naming a motion stole half its power. Victor raised both hands slowly, palms out, smiling as if the entire exchange amused him. This has become theater. Caleb's eyes remained on him. Yes, that is why we are moving it back to facts. Atlas stamped behind Caleb, disturbed by the sudden stillness in the people. Caleb softened his own shoulders immediately. "I know," he whispered. "Humans are noisy, even when they shut up." The horse snorted. Evelyn's gaze flicked to Caleb again, and for a second he saw something he had not expected. Grief, not for the horse alone. For being manipulated in her own arena, under her own name, by men she had trusted to turn expertise into control. Caleb knew that look. It lived in the half-second after someone realized the person guiding them out of panic might have been guiding them deeper into it. Denise secured Victor's phone. Another guard sealed the office door. Evelyn spoke to Caleb without looking away from Victor. "Can you lead Atlas out?" "Not lead," Caleb said. "Invite." Victor laughed bitterly. "This is absurd." Caleb ignored him. He angled his body toward the open gate and took another step back. Atlas came with him. One step. Stop. Breathe. Another step. Stop. Breathe. The stallion's hooves sank softly into the sand. He was still powerful enough to kill a man by accident, still afraid enough to try if the room pressed wrong, but his eye had changed. He was no longer searching for the fight. He was searching for the exit. Caleb gave it to him by refusing to own it. When they reached the gate, Jamie slowly opened it wider. Caleb did not thank him out loud because praise could startle courage before it settled. He simply nodded. Atlas crossed the threshold into the side aisle, then froze at the sight of too many bodies. Caleb raised one hand low. "Everyone turned sideways," he said. Nobody moved. He looked at Evelyn. Now, Evelyn turned sideways first. That did it. Investors, vets, grooms, camera crew, security one by one, they shifted their bodies, making the hallway less like a wall. Caleb did not miss the symbolism. A billionaire CEO had to turn before anyone else could admit the horse needed space. Atlas walked 3 more steps, then stopped outside the rehab stall. Caleb waited. The stallion lowered his nose toward the stall opening, smelled clean bedding, water, hay. His body still shook. "No chains on the door," Caleb said. Victor scoffed from behind security. "You cannot leave a dangerous stallion unsecured." Caleb turned his head slightly. The top latch and outside slide are enough. No warning signs facing him. No red ribbons on the door. No crowd. Evelyn nodded to Jamie. "Do it." Jamie removed the bright warning signs with trembling hands. When the red ribbons came off, something in the aisle changed. It was foolish, maybe, to think a horse cared about signs, but people did. Staff stopped looking at Atlas like a verdict. Caleb stepped aside, and the stallion entered the stall alone. No rope, no fight, no victory performance. Just a frightened animal choosing the least dangerous room available. Jamie closed the latch quietly. The arena behind them remained silent until Evelyn said, Everyone out except Mr. Reed, Victor, Denise, Dr. Bell, Jamie, and legal. Victor's head snapped toward her. You are seriously entertaining this? Evelyn removed her gloves finger by finger. I am seriously wondering why a horse scheduled for destruction just walked himself into a stall for the man you called sentimental. Dr. Bell cleared his throat. Fear responses can fluctuate. This does not disprove dangerous aggression. Caleb looked at him. Nothing disproves danger. The question is whether danger was manufactured. Evelyn turned. And you believe it was? Caleb looked through the stall bars at Atlas, who had lowered his head to the water but still watched every human movement. I believe someone used high-pressure sensory training after the horse showed sensitivity, created a panic association with the north wall and center arena, then buried or erased the incident because a $12 million stallion with trauma is worth less than a $12 million stallion with bad blood. Evelyn went very still. Bad blood. Caleb looked at Victor. His words. Victor's voice dropped. Careful. Caleb did not blink. Still am. Evelyn looked to Denise. Open the training office. The office was small, glass-fronted, climate-controlled, and cleaner than any tack room Caleb had ever been invited into. Its walls held framed competition photos, sponsor plaques, performance charts, and a locked cabinet beneath the monitor station. Denise had the master key. Victor protested every step, calling it violation, misunderstanding, emotional overreaction, staff manipulation, and reputational suicide in that order. Caleb heard the progression and almost admired the predictability. People who lied under pressure often moved through rooms. First authority, then confusion, then insult, then emergency. Evelyn stood at the desk while Denise powered on the monitor station. Password, Denise said. Victor smiled thinly. The system administrator has it. Evelyn looked at him. You run this barn. I oversee performance, not it. Caleb glanced at the desk. A leather notebook lay beside the keyboard. On the first page, a list of horse names and codes. Not the password itself. Rich barns were careless. Not stupid. He looked at the framed photo above the monitor. Victor beside Midnight Atlas, ribbon over the horse's neck, sponsor banner behind them. The banner included a date from the championship qualifier. Victor loved dates that made him look permanent. Caleb said, "Try Atlas Wellington with the year." Victor's eyes cut toward him too fast. Denise typed. The screen unlocked. Jamie whispered, "Holy." Evelyn did not smile. Mr. Langford. Victor's face had gone flat. Many people know that date. And yet Mr. Reed guessed your password in one sentence. Caleb said, "Vanity is not encryption." Denise opened the training footage archive. There were folders by horse, date, session type. Midnight Atlas had hundreds of files until 3 weeks ago, then nothing. The night of the first reported incident was missing. The next day, too. Dr. Bell leaned in. Could be routine overwrite. Caleb shook his head. The week before remains. The week after remains. Only the wound is gone. Evelyn's voice became quiet. Can deleted footage be recovered? Denise said. Maybe from backup if not wiped. Victor exhaled sharply. This is an internal barn matter. We do not need to turn a training disagreement into a criminal investigation. A horse was nearly euthanized, Caleb said. A handler was injured. Insurance was notified. Investors were told. That stopped being a training disagreement. Evelyn looked at Caleb. How do you know what insurance was told? Caleb pointed to the printer tray. A letterhead sat face down, only the top margin visible, because he printed something on insurer letterhead this morning and forgot to clear the tray. Denise pulled it out. Evelyn read it. Her face changed, and not softly. This says Atlas exhibited unprovoked aggression during standard low-stimulus handling. Caleb looked toward the arena. Low stimulus is false if they used flash panels and artificial crowd noise. Jamie stepped forward, pale but determined. They did. Victor turned on him. You should think carefully about your employment. Caleb stepped between them before Jamie could shrink, not aggressively, precisely. Do not make the witness smaller. Evelyn heard it. Jamie heard it. Victor heard it most of all because it named the old trick. Caleb continued. Ask him what he saw. Don't threaten him while pretending to advise him. Evelyn looked at Jamie. You are protected from retaliation as of this moment. Tell me what happened. Jamie swallowed hard, eyes wet now. Atlas was scared of the flash panels from the first session. Mr. Langford said he was testing dominance. The speakers were loud. He kept pushing him toward the north wall. Atlas slipped, hit the board, and when Carter tried to grab him with the chain, Atlas reared. Carter fell wrong. It wasn't like they said. He didn't attack him. He tried to get away. Evelyn's jaw tightened. Was this documented? Jamie shook his head. I filled an incident note. It disappeared. Who told you not to talk? Jamie looked at Victor. That was answer enough. Victor laughed once, but there was no humor left in it. A scared groom, a sentimental trainer, and a nervous horse. That is your case? Caleb turned slightly. No, that is the first door. Evelyn looked at him. What is the second? Caleb pointed at the locked cabinet. Denise opened it. Inside were vet supplements, tranquilizer logs, competition schedules, and a slim black drive in an envelope marked only with a colored sticker. Evelyn reached for it, but Caleb said, photograph it first. She stopped. That mattered. A person used to command had accepted instruction before ego could object. Denise photographed the drive, then plugged it into an isolated laptop from security. The first folder opened to arena testing clips. The missing session appeared in raw video fragments, not full footage, but enough. The flash panels fired too close. The speakers blasted crowd noise. Victor stood in the center with a training whip pointed toward the horse's chest. Carter used the chain. Atlas slammed into the north wall, slipped, scrambled, and reared while trying to turn away. Caleb watched without expression, but his stomach tightened. He hated watching fear made useful to arrogant men. Evelyn did not move at all. Her face emptied in the way powerful people sometimes emptied when shame arrived too quickly for posture. Jamie began crying silently. Dr. Bell looked away. Victor said, "That is out of context." Caleb's voice remained calm. "Then preserve the rest." Victor's eyes sharpened. For a moment, Caleb saw the calculation. Deny, blame staff, blame the horse, blame Caleb, blame anyone with less money. Evelyn saw it too now, because once you recognized a pattern, you could not unsee it. "Mr. Langford," she said, "you are suspended pending outside investigation." Victor's face twisted. "You are making a mistake." "No," Evelyn said. "I made it when I let you define the horse before I saw the room." Victor looked at Caleb with pure hatred. "You think this makes you important?" Caleb met his eyes. "No." "You think she'll protect you?" Caleb's expression did not change. "No." "Then you're dumber than you look." Caleb gave him the smallest nod. "Maybe." Victor stepped closer despite Denise's warning. "A man like you should be careful in a place like this." Caleb did not move back. He had learned long ago that threats were often less about future harm than present control. "State the threat clearly," he said. Victor blinked. "What? You want me afraid. Make the offer specific." Denise's hand hovered near her radio. Evelyn watched, frozen. Victor's mouth opened, but no words came. Caleb lowered his voice. That is what happens when intimidation has to become evidence. The room changed again. Jamie looked at Caleb like he had just seen someone disarm a loaded gun with grammar. Victor turned away first. Security escorted him out, but the hatred he left behind did not go with him. It stayed in the office, like a smell. Evelyn closed her eyes for 1 second, then opened them and looked at the paused footage of Atlas slamming into the wall. "I almost killed him." Caleb said nothing. She looked at him. "You could say no, Miss Hart." "Victor almost killed him. That would be easier for me to hear." Caleb shook his head. "You signed the room." Her face tightened. "Meaning?" "Victor created the pressure. You authorized the system that rewarded him for hiding it." Dr. Bell inhaled sharply, perhaps expecting Evelyn to fire Caleb on the spot. Caleb expected it too. He had never been good at protecting his job from the truth. Evelyn looked at him for a long moment. "You speak to me as if you have nothing to lose." Caleb thought of Lily's clinic envelope on the kitchen table. No, I speak that way because I do. Evelyn's anger faltered. Not gone. Interrupted. She looked at his muddy boots, his tired eyes, the old jacket, the man she had allowed others to reduce to barn labor. Mr. Reed, what does Midnight Atlas need? Time. Quiet. Medical recheck for sensory injury and soft tissue pain. No center pressure. No chains. No forced arena work. Jamie stays if Jamie chooses. Victor stays away. Every record preserved. And no public statement calling this a training review. What should it be called? A welfare investigation. Evelyn nodded slowly. Done. Dr. Bell started to object. Evelyn cut him off. Doctor, if your assessment ignored the training environment, then your assessment was incomplete. You may remain only if Mr. Ludovere Reed agrees. The office went still again. Caleb almost laughed, not because it was funny, but because power had a way of offering you a throne when it wanted to avoid confession. He shook his head. I don't decide who works here. Evelyn's eyes narrowed. You seem very comfortable deciding what everyone should do. In crisis, yes. After crisis, structure matters. Then what structure do you recommend? Independent vet. Independent behaviorist. Not paid through Victor's network. Staff interviews without management present. Footage copied to outside counsel. Horse removed from brand campaign. Public calendar cleared. Evelyn studied him. You have done this before. Caleb looked toward the arena. Different species. Before she could ask what that meant, his phone rang in Jamie's hand. The sound cracked through the office with an ordinary brightness that felt almost indecent. Jamie looked at the screen. It's Lily. Caleb crossed the room quickly and took the phone. Hey, Bug. Lily's voice came small and breathless. Dad. Mrs. Alvarez says don't panic. Caleb's body went cold with immediate terror. Why would she say that? Because the clinic called. The appointment moved. Caleb turned away from the room, lowering his voice. Moved to when? Today. He closed his eyes. The specialist appointment had taken 8 weeks to get. He had arranged extra shifts, traded days, begged favors. What time? Mrs. Alvarez came on the phone, voice brisk but worried underneath. 11:30. They had a cancellation. If you miss it, next available is 6 weeks. I can take her, but they said parent signature for new respiratory study. Caleb looked at the office clock. 10:06. Silvergate was 26 minutes from home, then 40 from the clinic if traffic behaved, which traffic never did when a father needed mercy. He looked through the glass toward Atlas's stall. Evelyn was watching him now, not as CEO, but as someone witnessing the sudden collapse of a man's careful compartments. I'm coming, Caleb said. Lily whispered. Is the scary horse okay? Caleb swallowed. He's safer than he was. Did you use the quiet voice? Yes. Use it on the doctors too. He almost smiled. I will. He ended the call and handed the phone back to Jamie out of habit before realizing it was his. Jamie gave it to him. Caleb turned to Evelyn. I need to leave. Victor would have loved that. Caleb could feel the trap forming even without Victor in the room. Abandoned crisis, unstable employee, sentimental father, distracted by personal issues. Evelyn seemed to hear it too. Go, she said. Jamie can sit with Atlas. Denise seals the office. Outside counsel arrives. Nothing moves until I return. Caleb shook his head. You should stay. Why? Because if you leave, they will say you were manipulated and emotionally overwhelmed. If I leave, they will say I ran after causing disruption. Both narratives already exist. The room needs you visible. Evelyn looked irritated because he was right. Then how do you get to the clinic? I drive. In that pickup? It works. Barely, I imagine. It has personality. It has rust. Also personality. For the first time, Evelyn almost smiled, but the moment did not last. She turned to Denise. Have a car take Mr. Reed to his daughter. Fast, Caleb said. No. Evelyn blinked. No? If I leave in your car, Victor's people call it payment, influence, favoritism. I drive myself. Evelyn stared at him as if he were the most inconvenient ethical problem she had ever met. You are impossible. Often. You need the appointment. Yes. You need the job. Yes. And you still refuse help because of optics? Caleb picked up his jacket. Because optics become evidence when rich people need a poor man discredited. That landed hard enough that Evelyn looked away first. Caleb softened his voice. Keep the room clean. I'll come back after the clinic if I still have access. You will. He walked toward the door. Evelyn's voice stopped him. Mr. Reed. He turned. Why did you not tell me you were more than rehab staff? Caleb looked at her, then through the glass at Atlas, then toward the muddy yard beyond the perfect barn. Because when powerful people need proof before they listen, they usually only listen to proof that flatters them. Evelyn's face tightened, not with insult but impact. Caleb added, and because horses don't ask for resumes, he left before the answer could become conversation. The drive to the clinic was ugly with traffic and silence. Caleb's old pickup rattled over potholes, the heater working only when it felt emotionally supported. His mind stayed divided in dangerous ways. One part on Lily's appointment, one part on Atlas, one part on the missing footage, one part on Victor's unfinished threat. He called Mrs. Alvarez on speaker. I'm 12 minutes out. We are in waiting room. Lily is negotiating with the fish tank. How? She named the orange fish Mayor Pickles and now claims he deserves more pebbles. Sounds like her. Mrs. Alvarez lowered her voice. Caleb, there are 2 men here asking questions. The road sound vanished from his awareness. What men? Suits. Not doctors. One spoke to receptionist. One looked at Lily too long. Caleb's hands tightened on the wheel, but his voice went soft, controlled. The quiet voice Lily trusted. Where are you sitting? Back wall. Near pediatric hallway. Exits? Main front. Side door by restrooms. Nurse door behind desk. Good. Do not confront. Do not leave with anyone. Put Lily on your left side. Wall behind you. Purse in your hand. If they approach, ask loudly if they are part of the medical team and request their names for the record. Mrs. Alvarez inhaled. This is Victor? Maybe. Maybe not. But pressure travels fast when money is embarrassed. Lily's voice came faintly in the background. Dad? Caleb forced warmth into his tone. I'm close, Bug. The fish are suspicious. Stay with Mrs. Alvarez. Do what she says. Are the men bad? Caleb did not lie. We don't know yet, so we make the room honest. He heard her breathe. Name the room? His throat tightened. She had learned too much from a life that required careful fathers. Yes. Name the room. He reached the clinic in 9 minutes by using every back road Hannah had once taught him, parked crooked, and entered through the sliding doors with his barn jacket still smelling of hay and arena dust. The pediatric clinic was bright, clean, and full of soft colors, meant to make parents forget bills existed. Caleb saw the men immediately. One near reception, gray suit, phone in hand. One by the hallway, pretending to read a brochure upside down. Mrs. Alvarez sat exactly where he had told her. Lily tucked against her side, Sergeant Pickles in her lap. Caleb's body wanted to move fast. His training made him slow down. Speed told watchers what mattered. Calm made them guess. He crossed the waiting room, kissed Lily's head, and sat beside her. Mayor Pickles behaving? Lily whispered. No, the blue fish is the real leader. Politics. Mrs. Alvarez murmured. Gray suit, looked at your truck. Caleb nodded. The man at reception glanced over. Caleb met his eyes without challenge, then looked away first. Invitation, not escalation. The nurse called Lily's name. The hallway man moved at the same time. Caleb stood and angled his body between the man and his daughter. Are you part of Lily Reed's medical team? He asked clearly. Parents turned. Reception looked up. The man froze. I'm sorry? Caleb kept his voice gentle. This is a pediatric clinic. You moved when my daughter's name was called. Are you part of her medical team? The man smiled. No, just waiting. For a child? For someone. Name? The man's smile faded. That's none of your business. Caleb nodded. Then please remain seated while my child enters a clinical area. The receptionist's expression sharpened with concern. The nurse stepped closer to Lily. Mrs. Alvarez stood, purse in hand like a weapon wrapped in leather. The man sat. Caleb did not watch him sit because domination invited revenge. He guided Lily down the hall with one hand on her shoulder. In the exam room, the doctor was kind, rushed, and worried by Lily's latest breathing scans. There were new options: a study, a treatment plan, forms, costs, scheduling conflicts, all the ordinary paperwork storms that could drown a parent without anyone meaning harm. Caleb listened, asked questions, repeated terms back in plain language, negotiated payment timing, refused a clause allowing broad release of non-essential records, and watched the doctor's face shift from impatience to respect. "You've done medical advocacy before?" she asked. Caleb looked at Lily, coloring a horse purple on the exam paper. "I've done rooms where people were scared and language mattered." The doctor softened. "That's most medicine." Then most medicine should slow down. By the time he left, Lily had a treatment slot. The release form had been narrowed, and Mrs. Alvarez had stolen 3 lollipops in protest of American healthcare. Outside the clinic, the 2 suited men were gone, but Caleb's truck windshield held a folded paper beneath the wiper. He told Lily to stay with Mrs. Alvarez, then removed it carefully by the corner. No letterhead, no signature, just one printed sentence. "Horses are not the only expensive things that can be put down." For 3 seconds, Caleb saw nothing but white. Not fear exactly, something older and hotter. A threat to a child turns the world red if you let it. He did not let it. He breathed once, twice, named the room, clinic parking lot, Lily present, Mrs. Alvarez present, unknown threat, preserve paper, do not contaminate, do not perform anger. Mrs. Alvarez saw his face and whispered, "Caleb?" He folded the note into the empty plastic sleeve from Lily's clinic papers without touching the ink. "Take Lily inside." Lily looked at him. "Dad?" He crouched, the note hidden behind his knee. "Bug. Mrs. Alvarez is going to show you the fish again." "Why?" "Because Mayor Pickles may be corrupt." Lily studied him with Hannah's eyes. "Your eyebrows are doing war." Caleb put a hand over them. "Temporary weather." She did not believe him, but she went with Mrs. Alvarez because she trusted his quiet voice more than his jokes. Caleb called Evelyn Hart from the parking lot. She answered on the second ring. "Mr. Reet." Behind her, he could hear barn noise and legal voices. "I received a threat at my daughter's clinic." Silence. Then Evelyn's voice changed. "Is she safe?" The question mattered. It came first. Caleb filed that away. "Yes, for now." "What did it say?" Caleb read it. Evelyn swore softly, not elegantly. "Victor?" "Maybe. Or someone protecting him. Or someone using him as cover." "Send me a photo." "No, Mr. Reed. This goes to police first, then counsel, then you. Order matters." A pause. "You do understand I am trying to help. I understand you own the system where the threat began." That silence was longer. When Evelyn spoke again, the pride had drained from her voice. "Fair." Caleb looked at the clinic doors. "Do not announce Victor's suspension publicly yet. If he thinks the room is still confused, he may move again. Preserve payroll records, outside vendor logs, private training invoices, security access, and any communications about Atlas's insurance value." "Insurance value?" "Follow the money around the death decision." Evelyn inhaled. "You think Atlas was worth more dead?" "I think someone wanted the question decided before truth lowered the price of a different secret." "What secret?" Caleb looked at the threat in the plastic sleeve. "The one they threatened my daughter to keep." Back at Silvergate, Evelyn stood alone in the viewing lounge overlooking the empty arena. The outside counsel had arrived. Victor was gone. Dr. Bell had been dismissed pending review. Jamie sat outside Atlas's stall reading aloud from a horse magazine because Caleb had told him ordinary sound mattered more than heroic silence. Security footage was being copied. The office drive was sealed. On paper, Evelyn had done everything right since the moment she changed course. Yet when Caleb returned near sunset, the stable did not feel safer. It felt like a held breath. He found Evelyn at the rail. No investors now, no cameras, no cream coat armor, just a woman in a dark sweater staring at the north wall where the first lie had broken. "Your daughter?" she asked without turning. "At home with Mrs. Alvarez. Police?" "Report made. Paper preserved. You should have let me send security. Security from your barn is not neutral yet." She accepted that with visible difficulty. "You don't trust anyone." Caleb stood beside her, keeping distance. "I trust behavior." "And what does mine tell you?" He looked through the glass at the arena. "You like control. You dislike being wrong. You can change direction when evidence is strong enough, but you still think speed can fix what speed helped break." Evelyn gave a humorless laugh. "Most men answer that question more carefully. Most men want something from you." She looked at him then. "You don't?" Caleb thought of Lily's appointment, rent, clinic bills, his job hanging by a thread. "I want my daughter safe, and that horse alive. That is something." "Yes, but not from who you pretend to be." The words hit her. She turned back to the arena. "My father bought Midnight Atlas before he died. He told me the horse had fire, and fire either becomes legacy or liability depending on who holds the reins." Caleb said, "That sounds like a man who made fear sound wise." Evelyn's jaw tightened. "You judge everyone quickly." "No, I listen quickly." She looked at him again, and this time he saw the CEO measuring the negotiator, not the groom. "What were you before this?" Caleb could have lied. He could have said nothing. But the threat at the clinic had moved the game past barn hierarchy. Crisis negotiator. Evelyn's face changed. Police? Consultant attached to a county team. Then private contract work. Then hospitals. Then veterans calls. Then I stopped. "Why?" Caleb looked at his hands. "My wife got sick. I was good at talking strangers back from ledges. Couldn't talk death out of my own kitchen." Evelyn's expression softened, but Caleb did not want softness. Softness could become pity, and pity was just contempt with a blanket. "Hannah trained horses?" she asked. Caleb looked toward Atlas's stall. "Better than I did. And now you do this." "Now I pay bills and listen to animals rich people call difficult." Evelyn nodded slowly. "Victor said you had a sentimental attachment." Victor uses sentiment as an insult because he confuses attachment with weakness. "And you don't?" Caleb turned toward her. "Attachment is the only reason anyone negotiates instead of destroys." For a long moment, neither spoke. Then Denise entered the lounge, carrying a tablet. "Miss Hart." Counsel recovered partial deleted messages from the training office sync. Evelyn took the tablet. Caleb watched her read. Her face hardened line by line. "What is it?" he asked. She handed him the tablet without a word. The messages were between Victor and an unknown contact saved only as HB. They referenced Atlas's death review, insurance timing, footage deletion, and something called the Hartwell buyer clause. One message from HB read, "If the Stallion is declared unstable before the transfer window closes, Evelyn loses leverage, and we move the bloodline option privately." Caleb read it twice. This was never just about behavior. Evelyn's voice was cold enough to cut. They were trying to steal the bloodline rights. Denise nodded. "Counsel says the buyer clause is tied to a shell company." Caleb looked at the initials, HB. "Who is HB?" Evelyn did not answer immediately. That told him she knew. "Harrison Bellamy," she said at last. "My half-brother." Caleb turned toward her. There it was again. Family, legacy, grief, money, the same old reins, held by cleaner hands. Before he could speak, a scream came from the barn aisle. "Jamie." Caleb moved first, but not fast enough to become careless. He reached the rehab wing with Evelyn and Denise behind him. Jamie stood outside Atlas's stall, shaking, pointing at the stall door. The latch had been opened. The stall was empty. In the fresh shavings lay Lily's purple lunchbox sticker, peeled from her old box and placed neatly in the center of the stall like a message. Caleb stopped so abruptly Evelyn nearly ran into him. The world narrowed again, hot and white. Then his quiet voice returned, colder than before. "Nobody moves," he said. "This is not a missing horse anymore." Evelyn whispered, "What is it?" Caleb looked at the open stall, the empty space where Atlas had been, and the tiny purple sticker that belonged in his daughter's kitchen. It's a negotiation. Caleb Reed did not touch the purple sticker in the middle of Midnight Atlas's empty stall. That was the first thing Evelyn Hart noticed, though she did not yet understand why it mattered. Most people, finding a child's sticker placed like a threat where a $12 million stallion should have been, would have grabbed it, cursed, demanded names, called security, called police, called everyone at once until the barn became louder than the danger. Caleb did none of those things. He stood at the open stall door with his hands at his sides, his muddy boots planted in the shavings, his face so still it frightened Evelyn more than if he had shouted. Jamie was shaking beside the stall, one hand pressed to his mouth. Denise had her radio halfway lifted. Two grooms stood frozen at the far end of the aisle. The horses in the rehab wing shifted uneasily, reading the human panic before the humans admitted it. Caleb breathed once, slow and quiet, and said, "Name the room." Jamie blinked. "What?" Caleb's voice remained low. "Say what is true before anyone says what they fear." Jamie swallowed hard. "Rehab barn, Midnight Atlas's stall. Time is..." He looked helplessly at his phone. 6:18 p.m. Caleb nodded. "Who is present?" Jamie's voice cracked. "You, Miss Hart, Denise, me, 2 grooms, 3 horses in the wing." "Good. What do we know?" "Atlas is gone." "What do we see?" Jamie looked at the empty stall. Open latch. No broken wood. No blood. Fresh shavings disturbed. Lily's sticker in the center. Caleb nodded again. "What do we not know?" Jamie's eyes filled. "Who took him? Where he is? How they got Lily's sticker?" "Good." Evelyn stared at Caleb, stunned by the method. He was not denying fear. He was putting borders around it so it could not grow teeth. Denise lowered her radio slightly. "Mr. Reed, we need to lock down the property." Caleb looked at her. "Yes. Quiet lockdown. No sirens inside barns. No running staff. Cameras preserved. Every gate status checked by one person repeating time and result. Nobody touches the stall, the latch, or the sticker until police photograph it." Evelyn stepped forward. "Police?" Caleb finally turned his eyes to her. They were calm, but the calm had changed. It was not gentle now. It was surgical. A horse was removed after evidence preservation began, and a personal item connected to my daughter was placed as a message. That is, theft, intimidation, evidence interference, and a threat to a child. Yes, police. Evelyn's jaw tightened. "Denise, call them." Denise moved. Caleb added, "Say suspected witness, intimidation, involving a minor. Say the child is currently safe but potentially targeted. Ask for units to my apartment and Mrs. Alvarez's feed store." Evelyn looked at him sharply. "You think they'll go there? They already went close enough to get the sticker. Could it be old?" Caleb's eyes flicked toward the sticker. "Lily peeled that from her lunchbox last week and stuck it under our kitchen table because she said purple horses needed secret caves." Evelyn went pale. How would they get it? "That is the question they want me to chase emotionally. We answer procedurally." He took out his phone and called Mrs. Alvarez. She answered before the first ring finished. "Tell me, is Lily with you?" "Yes. Kitchen. Eating soup. Watching me hold the rolling pin because America refuses to provide proper swords. Lock the front and back. Close the blinds. Stay away from windows. Police are coming to sit outside." "What happened?" Caleb looked at the empty stall. Someone put Lily's sticker in Atlas's stall. There was a silence so deep Evelyn could hear it from 3 feet away. Then Mrs. Alvarez said, "I am going to say many things in Spanish that should not be entered into evidence. Later. Right now, name your room." "Feed store apartment kitchen. Time 6:21. Lily present. Doors locked. Soup hot. Rolling pin armed." "Good." Lily's voice came faintly through the phone. "Dad?" Caleb's expression changed for 1 second. The father broke through the negotiator, not enough to weaken him, only enough to remind everyone why the negotiator existed. "Hey, Bug, did the scary horse run away?" Caleb closed his eyes briefly. Someone moved him. Was he scared? Probably. "Are you scared?" Caleb looked at Evelyn, at Denise, at Jamie, at the open stall. Yes. Lily was quiet. Then she said, "Use the quiet voice on you too." The words hit the barn like a small bell. Jamie wiped his face. Evelyn looked away. Caleb swallowed once. "I'm trying. Sergeant Pickles says don't let mean people make you gallop. Smart horse. And don't let them make Atlas bad." "I won't." He ended the call only after Mrs. Alvarez promised to call when police arrived. Then he turned back to the stall. Denise, who had access to this wing after 4 p.m., Denise already had her tablet. Staff, security, veterinary team, Miss Hart, outside counsel, and technically maintenance. Technically, maintenance badges open service gates. Who manages maintenance? Evelyn answered before Denise could. Facilities contractor. Outsourced last year. Caleb looked at her. Victor's decision? Her face hardened. Victor recommended the change. Vendor logs. Denise nodded and moved. Evelyn said, "Mr. Reed, if this involves my half-brother, this becomes larger than a barn investigation." "It already is. Harrison is ruthless. But taking a horse from my property and threatening a child—" "Do not finish that sentence as a defense." She stared at him. "I was not defending him. You were about to compare his known behavior to behavior you don't want to believe. That gap is where powerful families hide dangerous people." Evelyn's eyes flashed. "You talk to me like I'm the suspect." Caleb stepped out of the stall doorway, still careful not to disturb the shavings. "No. I talk to you like someone whose disbelief has already been used once today." That silenced her because it was cruel only in the way accuracy could be cruel. A police siren sounded far outside, then stopped before reaching the barn. Good, Caleb thought. Denise had told them quiet. Jamie whispered, "What do we do about Atlas?" Caleb walked to the aisle and crouched near the faint marks outside the stall. There were 2 sets of footprints in the dusted concrete, one with riding boots, one wider, heavy tread, likely maintenance or security. Atlas's hoofprints were not frantic. That mattered. He did not explode out, Caleb said. He was led. Jamie shook his head. He wouldn't let Victor lead him after today. Not Victor alone. Caleb followed the hoofprints with his eyes. They led toward the rear service door, not the main aisle. No drag marks, no blood, no broken boards. Someone he tolerated, or someone who used sedation. Jamie's head snapped up. Sedation? Caleb looked toward the vet cabinet. Check the logs. Evelyn turned to Denise. Do it. Caleb raised a hand. Photograph first. Then check. Denise nodded. Evelyn noticed again. The order mattered to him like breathing. Preserve, then act. The rear service door had been propped open with a small rubber wedge, the kind used by maintenance crews. Outside, cold air moved over the gravel lane behind the rehab barn. Tire marks cut through the soft mud near the manure shed. Caleb crouched again, not touching, measuring with his eyes. Trailer. Denise looked down. You can tell? Dual axle. Backed in crooked. Driver nervous or rushed. Horse loaded from the side path. Evelyn folded her arms tightly. Would Atlas load for strangers? Not strangers. Then who? Caleb looked toward Jamie. The young groom shook his head fast. I didn't. I swear. I know. How? Because you're still here. Jamie almost collapsed from relief. Caleb continued scanning the ground. One hoof mark had dug deep near the trailer track, not a panic strike, more of a hesitation. Atlas had resisted briefly, then followed. Who fed him after I left? Jamie wiped his nose with his sleeve. Evelyn went rigid. Dr. Bell left. Denise checked her tablet. Security shows Dr. Bell exiting through front gate at 5:02. Caleb stood. Front gate means camera certainty. Back service road? Denise's mouth tightened. Checking. Evelyn cursed under her breath. He helped Victor. Caleb said, maybe. Or Bell is a visible piece. Meaning, if they wanted you to find a villain quickly, Victor and Bell are good gifts. Evelyn frowned. You think Harrison is behind them? I think whoever did this wants me angry at the nearest man, and you ashamed of the nearest mistake. That splits the room. Denise returned from the vet cabinet with photos and a log sheet. Sedation inventory shows 1 dose of ditomidine signed out at 4:47 m. for Atlas evaluation. Jamie shook his head. He wasn't supposed to be sedated. Caleb looked at Evelyn. Who signed? Denise's expression darkened. Dr. Bell. Who witnessed? Victor Langford. Evelyn's voice went cold. Find Bell. Denise spoke into her radio. Caleb was already thinking ahead. A sedated stallion, a trailer, a threat note, a shell company, a half-brother, bloodline option, insurance leverage. This was not simple theft. It was a pressure structure. Atlas was leverage against Evelyn's inheritance and against Caleb's cooperation. Lily's sticker was leverage against his nerve. 2 targets. 1 room. Where would they take him? Evelyn asked. Caleb looked toward the dark service road beyond the barn lights. Somewhere close enough to move before police expand, far enough to hide a trailer, familiar enough that Atlas doesn't destroy himself unloading. Jamie whispered. Old South Barn. Everyone turned. What old South Barn? Caleb asked. Jamie swallowed. Beyond the lower paddocks. Closed before I started. Used to be quarantine and breeding storage. Victor had maintenance crews there last month. Said it was for roof repairs. Evelyn looked furious. I was told that barn was condemned. Condemned does not mean unused, Caleb said. It means fewer witnesses. Denise said, I'll send security. No. Caleb's answer was immediate. Evelyn rounded on him. No. If they have Atlas there, and armed or panicked men hear security running in, the horse pays first. If they have cameras, they show a chaotic rescue and claim we endangered the animal. If this is a negotiation, we don't rush the hostage. Evelyn's face changed at the word hostage. You are calling the horse a hostage. I am calling the situation one. Denise looked at him differently now. What do you suggest? Caleb turned toward the barn office lights. Police create perimeter quietly. No lights near South Barn. Denise checks service road cameras. Evelyn stays visible here with counsel, so no one claims she ordered an unauthorized recovery. Jamie stays with police and gives statement. I go to the South Barn with 1 neutral officer and 1 person who knows the property map. Evelyn said, I'm going. No. This is my property. That is why you stay. Her eyes flashed. You do not command me. Caleb stepped closer, lowering his voice so the others did not feel invited into her humiliation. Miss Hart, if you go, this becomes billionaire owner Storm's old barn after disputed horse seizure. If I go, it becomes staff witness verifies animal welfare under police observation. The story matters because someone is already writing it against us. She hated that. He could see it, but she heard it too. And if they hurt you? She asked. Then there's a witness. That is not reassuring. It is not meant to be. It is meant to be clean. Denise said, I'll go. Caleb studied her. You know horses? No. Then you stay outside. Jamie whispered. I know the property. Caleb looked at him. You also know Atlas. I want to help. You already did. Now your job is to stay alive and keep telling the same truth. Jamie's face crumpled a little, but he nodded. In the end, the police sent Officer Grant, a quiet woman who had grown up around ranch horses and did not try to prove bravery by standing too close to doors. Denise provided a property map. Evelyn stood in the rehab barn doorway watching Caleb prepare to leave. Fury and fear held tightly behind her composed face. Mr. Reed, she said. He turned. If my brother is involved, he will not negotiate honestly. Caleb zipped his old jacket. Most people don't at first. You make that sound normal. It is, and if he threatens Lily again? Something moved behind Caleb's eyes. Not much. Enough. Then I remember that protecting my daughter and preserving the record are not opposites unless I let him make them opposites. Evelyn looked down. I don't know how you do that. Caleb thought of the note, the sticker, the clinic envelope, Lily's hand on his face telling him his eyebrows were lying politely. I do it badly, he said. Then I do it again. The path to the old South Barn ran beyond the polished parts of Silvergate, past the arena, past the viewing lounge, past the white fences built for photographs, down through a lower field where grass grew rough and real, The sky had gone deep, blue-black. Caleb walked with Officer Grant about 20 feet behind him, and to the side, as agreed, her flashlight angled down, one hand near her radio, but not touching it. No sirens, no shouted commands. The old barn appeared between bare trees, a long sagging structure with peeling red paint and a collapsed weather vane. A faint light glowed through a cracked board near the rear. Caleb stopped 50 yards out and listened. Wind, distant traffic, a muffled thump from inside. Not human. Hoof. Alive. Officer Grant whispered. "You hear him?" Caleb nodded. One horse. Maybe tied. Maybe loose in a stall. People? At least one. Light source inside. Trailer smell. Trailer smell? Hot brakes and manure. Officer Grant gave him a sideways look. "You really do listen to everything." "No. Just things people forget are speaking." They moved closer. At 30 yards, Caleb saw the trailer backed against the barn's far door. At 20 yards, he saw the side ramp down. At 15, he saw a man's shadow cross the light. Not Victor. Taller, broader. Maybe maintenance. Caleb stopped before the open side door and lifted his voice just enough to enter the barn without startling the horse. "My name is Caleb Reed. I am outside the south barn with Officer Grant. We are not rushing in. We need to know if the horse is injured." Silence. Then a man's voice, rough and angry. "Go away." Officer Grant shifted, but Caleb held one hand slightly back. "I can't do that. Midnight Atlas was removed from medical observation. If he's hurt, delay makes this worse for everyone. Horse is fine." "Good, then say what position he's in." "What?" "Standing, down, tied, loose, sweating, bleeding. Pick facts." A pause. The man was not trained. That was useful. Trained liars hated specific observations. Untrained men could be moved toward facts because facts felt less dangerous than confession. "Standing," the man said. "Tied. Head high or low?" "High." "Sweating?" "Some." "Bleeding?" Another pause. "No." Caleb looked at Officer Grant and nodded slightly. "No immediate injury." "What's your name?" Silence. "I'm not asking for guilt. I'm asking what to call you so I don't have to say hey. People make bad choices faster when they feel unnamed." The man swore. "Mason. Mason. Are you alone?" "Yes." "Too quick." Caleb filed it. "Who else was here earlier?" "Nobody. That was fast enough to be a shield. Try again." The barn went quiet except for Atlas shifting inside. Then another voice came from deeper in the barn, smoother, educated, annoyed. "Enough. Let him in." Officer Grant's eyes sharpened. Caleb did not move immediately. "Identify yourself." The smooth voice answered. "Harrison Bellamy, Evelyn's half-brother." Caleb exhaled slowly. There it was. Not the whole truth, but a door with a name on it. "Mr. Bellamy, I'm here for the horse." Harrison laughed softly. "No, Mr. Reed. You're here because I placed a sticker in a stall and you understood the language. Credit where it's due." Officer Grant whispered into her radio, requesting quiet support. Caleb kept his gaze on the door. "You involved my daughter because you wanted my fear in the room before I arrived. And yet you sound disappointingly composed. That is because I practice before I'm afraid." Harrison stepped into view inside the barn, wearing a dark cashmere coat that looked absurd against rotting boards and old hay dust. He was handsome in a way that resembled Evelyn without carrying any of her restraint. Same sharp bone structure, same money in the posture, but his smile had no burden in it. Behind him, Atlas stood in a box stall with a rope tied too short to an iron ring. His black coat was damp. His eyes were wide. Mason stood near the stall door, heavy boots planted, trying to look like muscle, and succeeding only at looking regretful. Caleb's attention went to the rope first. Too short. Pressure high. Panic building. "Loosen the tie," Caleb said. Harrison smiled. "You negotiate with horses before people? With whoever is closest to breaking." Mason glanced at the stallion. Harrison noticed. "Leave it." Caleb looked at Mason. "Not Harrison. If he pulls back and flips, his neck breaks. You'll be the man standing beside him when it happens." Mason's face tightened. Harrison's smile thinned. Mason works for me. No, Caleb said softly. Mason is standing closer to consequence than you are. That gives him a vote whether you admit it or not. Officer Grant murmured. Mason, loosen the tie slowly. Harrison turned his head. Do not. Mason looked between them, sweat on his forehead. Atlas tossed his head, rope snapping tight. Caleb did not raise his voice. Mason, this is the moment your story becomes different from his. Mason swallowed, then reached slowly and loosened the rope by 6 inches. Atlas blew out hard. Harrison's eyes cooled. That was unwise, Caleb said. It was the first wise thing in this barn. Harrison stepped closer to the doorway, hands in coat pockets. You have become inconvenient very quickly for a man who feeds hay. People keep saying that like hay is a moral failure. No, poverty is the failure. Hay is only the costume. Officer Grant stiffened, but Caleb did not. Insults were not obstacles. They were weather. What do you want? Caleb asked. Harrison smiled. Direct. Good. I want my sister to sign the bloodline transfer she has delayed for 6 months. Midnight Atlas was purchased under a complex structure my father arranged before his death. Evelyn imagines sentiment grants ownership. Contracts disagree. If the horse is declared unstable before the transfer window closes, certain performance obligations fail. If he disappears into welfare investigation, everyone loses. If she signs tonight, Atlas reappears tomorrow, unharmed. Victor takes blame, and your daughter remains a charming child rather than an unfortunate headline. Officer Grant's jaw tightened. Caleb heard the threat. He also heard the offer's weakness. Harrison had not said he would hurt Lily. He had said headline, public pressure, reputation, maybe false welfare report, maybe medical privacy leak. Powerful cowards often preferred paperwork to blood. You need Evelyn's signature, Caleb said. Obviously. Then Atlas is not enough. Harrison's smile faded by a fraction. Excuse me? You stole the horse before contacting her. That means the horse alone was not leverage you trusted. You added my daughter's sticker to make me pressure, Evelyn. That means you think she may listen to me now, which means your plan changed after this morning. Harrison said nothing. Caleb stepped half an inch to the side, changing the angle between himself and Atlas, reducing the stallion's view of Harrison. Victor failed to get the death order. The footage survived. Evelyn locked the office. You lost the clean path. Now you need a dirty signature fast before counsel finds the shell company. Harrison's eyes sharpened. Officer Grant stayed silent, letting Caleb work. Mason stared at Harrison now, as if hearing the plan assembled out loud made it uglier. Caleb continued. So here is the problem. If I call Evelyn and repeat your demand, you get your signature maybe. But you also prove coercion. If you hurt the horse, you destroy the asset. If you threaten my daughter directly, you bring police and child intimidation into a financial fraud case. You are standing in a barn with one frightened horse, one uncertain employee, one police officer, and one poor man you misread. That is not leverage. That is a room getting smaller. Harrison smiled again, but now the smile had effort behind it. You think you're very good at this. No, I think you're rushing. And what do you offer, Mr. Reed? Proof of life, for Atlas. Unharmed release, to neutral veterinary custody. You leave through counsel. Your demand becomes a civil claim instead of criminal escalation. You stop involving my daughter. Harrison laughed. That is not an offer. That is surrender. Caleb shook his head. It is a bridge back to a fight you can still afford. Officer Grant glanced at him with something like admiration. Harrison's face hardened. You assume I'm afraid of criminal exposure. No, I assume you're afraid of looking desperate. That landed. Harrison Bellamy's expression went cold in a way that told Caleb the first real door had opened. Careful, Harrison said. Caleb took one slow step closer to the barn entrance, not entering fully. You built this like a transaction because you believe everything becomes cleaner when priced. Horse, sister, legacy, staff, child, fear. But you made one mistake. Only one? You used Lily's sticker. Harrison tilted his head. That upset you. Yes. Good. No, Caleb said. Not good. Useful. It told me you don't understand fathers. Fear can make a father obey, but the wrong kind of fear makes him precise. Harrison's eyes flicked to Officer Grant, then to Mason, then to Atlas. Caleb saw the calculation shifting again. The horse stamped. Too much pressure, too much human poison in the air. Caleb lowered his body angle and spoke toward Atlas. Easy. I know. We're almost done pretending they're in charge. Harrison sneered. Do you always perform nobility for animals? Caleb kept his eyes on the stallion. No, people usually need it more. A radio crackled softly at Officer Grant's shoulder. She turned it down without speaking. Harrison noticed. More police? Caleb answered before she could. Yes. Then this conversation is over. Harrison stepped back toward the stall, and Atlas jerked against the rope. Mason flinched. Caleb lifted a hand. Stop moving toward him. Harrison ignored him. Mason, load the horse. Mason did not move. Harrison turned. Mason. Mason stared at the stallion, then at Caleb, then at Officer Grant. I didn't sign up for hurting a kid. Harrison's face twisted. There is no kid here, Caleb said. There it is. Harrison looked at him. What? The lie people use right before they harm one. Not here, not directly, not my fault. Mason stepped away from the stall door. It was small, but in hostage rooms, small defections were structural failures. Officer Grant moved her hand to her radio. Harrison saw the room slipping. His voice dropped. Mr. Reed, you should ask yourself what a man like me can do to a man like you after tonight. Caleb met his eyes. State the threat clearly. Harrison laughed, but it broke halfway. You and that phrase. Because cowards hate transcripts. For 1 second, Harrison's polished face vanished. Rage showed underneath. He lunged not at Caleb, not at Officer Grant, but toward the stall latch, grabbing the rope as if the horse were a document he could still remove. Atlas panicked. The stallion threw his head up. The rope snapped tight. Mason shouted. Officer Grant drew her taser but did not fire because the horse was too close, and Harrison cursed as Atlas slammed against the stall wall. Caleb moved not fast toward Harrison, but fast toward the pressure point. Release the rope, he shouted, the first time his voice rose. Harrison held on, trying to control what he had never understood. Caleb stepped into the stall doorway, angled his shoulder, and spoke not to Harrison but to Mason. Cut it. Mason grabbed the emergency blade hanging by the tack hook, sliced the rope, and Atlas surged backward, free enough not to break, wild enough to strike air. Caleb stepped sideways, giving the horse the exit line toward the empty center aisle. Open space. Officer Grant pulled Mason back. Harrison stumbled, fell hard into the shavings, and Atlas burst from the stall into the barn aisle, hooves thundering, eyes white, not attacking, fleeing. Caleb did not chase. Lights down, he called. Officer Grant hit the side switch. The barn dimmed. Atlas stopped near the open doorway, shaking, framed by cold night air. Caleb lowered his voice immediately. Good. You got out. That's all. Harrison groaned from the stall floor. Officer Grant moved to him. Stay down. Caleb did not look at Harrison. He looked only at Atlas. The stallion stood between barn and night, every muscle deciding whether the world deserved another chance. Caleb turned his body away, creating a path, not to himself but to the open paddock beyond the barn. You can chilling the dark, he whispered. But there's fence out there. You'll hit it before you know it. Or you can choose the aisle with me. No hands. No ropes. Just room. Atlas trembled. Outside, police lights glowed faintly through trees, carefully distant. Inside, Harrison was being cuffed by Officer Grant while spitting about lawyers and property rights. Mason stood with both hands up, crying without sound. Caleb took 1 step backward down the aisle. Atlas watched. Another step. The horse shifted forward. Not much. Enough. Caleb stopped. Good. Another breath. Another step. Atlas followed. By the time Denise and 2 officers reached the barn door, Caleb had guided Midnight Atlas back into the open lower paddock, not by holding him, but by making every other choice less safe than trust. Evelyn arrived last, coat thrown over a sweater, face stripped of command. She saw Harrison in cuffs, Mason seated on a hay bale with an officer beside him, Atlas standing loose in the paddock near Caleb, and for a moment the billionaire owner of Silvergate looked less like a CEO than a woman watching her family name fall apart under barn lights. Harrison lifted his head as officers guided him past her. "You have no idea what father promised me," he hissed. Evelyn stared at him. "No, but I know what you threatened. That trainer is using you." Caleb did not turn. Evelyn looked at Caleb, standing 10 feet from Atlas, hands empty, jacket dirty, face tired beyond words. Then she looked back at Harrison. "He saved what you tried to price." Harrison smiled with blood at the corner of his mouth. "Did he? Ask him who trained him to read rooms like that. Ask him why a horseman talks like a hostage negotiator. Ask him what happened in Red Willow." Caleb went still. Evelyn saw it. So did Harrison, and his smile widened. "Oh," Harrison whispered. "She doesn't know." Officer Grant pushed him forward. Harrison called over his shoulder. "Careful, Evelyn. Men with dead wives and rescue stories usually bury something under the hero act." The words hung in the cold like smoke. Evelyn turned slowly toward Caleb. Jamie, arriving with a blanket and trembling hands, looked confused. Denise looked suspicious despite herself, because suspicion was what threats were designed to plant. Atlas lowered his head beside Caleb, exhausted, alive. Caleb stared into the dark paddock, and for the first time that night, the room inside him shifted out of his control. Red Willow. He had not heard the name spoken in public for 4 years. Evelyn took one step toward him. "What is Red Willow?" Caleb closed his eyes for a fraction of a second, then opened them with the same terrifying calm he used when everything hurt. "A room where I failed." Evelyn waited. Caleb did not explain, not yet. His phone rang then, cutting through the paddock silence. "Mrs. Alvarez," he answered immediately. "Lily?" Mrs. Alvarez's voice was tight. "She is safe. Police are outside." "But Caleb, someone just sent a video to my phone." His blood chilled again. "What video?" "An old news clip. You, a boy on a bridge, Red Willow County." Caleb's hand tightened around the phone. Across the paddock, Evelyn watched his face change. Mrs. Alvarez lowered her voice. "It says, 'Ask the horse whisperer how many children he could not save.'" Caleb looked at Midnight Atlas, at the living witness breathing in the cold, at Evelyn standing between suspicion and trust, at the police lights near the barn, at the old name crawling out of his past exactly when his daughter was safest and most vulnerable. Then he said, quietly enough that only the phone and the horse could hear, "Now they're negotiating with my shame." Caleb Reed stood in the lower paddock with Midnight Atlas breathing beside him and the name Red Willow hanging in the cold air like a verdict someone had waited years to deliver. The police lights stayed low beyond the trees. Harrison Bellamy was being pushed into the back of a patrol vehicle, still smiling like a man who believed money could turn handcuffs into jewelry, and Evelyn Hart watched Caleb with the careful stillness of someone who had just realized the man she needed might be carrying a locked room inside himself. "What is Red Willow?" she asked again, quieter this time, not because she had softened, but because the horse was near, and Caleb's face had become the kind of calm people used when noise would break them. Caleb did not answer immediately. He lifted one hand toward Atlas, palm low, not touching, letting the stallion know the human storm was not aimed at him. Atlas lowered his head a fraction and blew warm air into the night. Jamie stood near the barn door with a blanket clutched uselessly in both hands. Denise spoke into her radio. Officer Grant guided Harrison toward the cruiser. Mason sat on a hay bale with another officer beside him, staring at his hands as if they belonged to a stranger. Caleb's phone remained pressed to his ear. Mrs. Alvarez waiting on the other end, after telling him someone had sent her an old video titled with the words, "Ask the horse whisperer how many children he could not save." "Mrs. Alvarez," Caleb said at last, "do not open the video again. Preserve the message. Screenshot the sender, time, and preview. Send it to Officer Grant's number when I give it to you. Then put the phone on the table and make Lily cocoa." Mrs. Alvarez's voice was tight. "You are using your room voice." "I know. That means I should worry. You should lock the door and make cocoa." "I can do both." Lily's voice came faintly in the background. "Is Dad okay?" Caleb closed his eyes for 1 second. "Tell her I'm with Atlas." Mrs. Alvarez repeated it, and Lily said something he could not hear. Then Mrs. Alvarez came back. She says, "Tell him the horse is not his fault." Caleb's throat tightened so fast he almost lost the room. Almost. "Tell her I heard that." He ended the call before his daughter's kindness could become the weapon Harrison wanted it to be. Evelyn took one step closer. "Caleb," he turned toward her, and for a moment she saw not the stable hand everyone had dismissed, not the quiet trainer in muddy boots, not the man who had walked into an arena with empty hands, but a father standing between his child and a machine designed to use shame as leverage. "Red Willow was a negotiation," he said. 4 years ago, a veteran named Mark Ellison took his 12-year-old son to an old railroad bridge during a custody dispute. County team called me because I had rapport with him from a previous crisis. I talked with him for 2 hours. Got him to lower the knife. Got him to let the boy sit down. Then a county commander ordered a tactical move before the room was ready. Evelyn's face changed. The child died. Caleb's eyes stayed on Atlas. The father jumped when he saw the movement. The boy tried to hold him. They both went over the railing. The father died. The boy survived the fall, but not the night. Jamie made a small sound. Denise lowered her radio. Evelyn's hand went to her mouth, then dropped, because she seemed to remember pity could be another kind of pressure. Caleb continued, his voice steady but hollow at the edges. Official report called it unavoidable. Local news called me the negotiator who failed. The department buried the timing issue. I signed nothing, but I stopped fighting after Hannah got sick. That is what Harrison is using. Evelyn looked toward the police car. How would Harrison know that? That is the better question. Officer Grant returned then, her expression sharp. Mr. Reed, Bellamy is asking for counsel and refusing to answer. Mason says he was hired through a contractor to transport the horse, told it was a private family ownership dispute, and told not to ask about the sticker. Caleb nodded. Mason is frightened enough to become useful. Separate him from Harrison before lawyers arrive. Take his first statement now, before he learns how expensive silence can be. Officer Grant gave him a look. You know I do not take orders from civilians. Good. Then make it your decision quickly. She almost smiled despite the circumstances. Already doing it. Evelyn folded her arms. Who has access to Red Willow files? Caleb looked toward the barn. County archives, old news stations, police internal report, civil attorneys, anyone with enough money and motive. Harrison had motive. Yes. Victor had motive. Yes. Someone else had access. Caleb finally looked at her fully. Yes. Evelyn understood. My father. Caleb did not answer. The silence did. Harrison had said, "Ask him what happened in Red Willow." The words were not random cruelty. They were targeted, timed, and packaged with Lily's sticker to force Caleb into either rage or withdrawal. A single father with a threatened daughter, a dead wife, a public failure, a powerful CEO under investigation, a traumatized stallion worth millions, and a family inheritance war. Every pressure point had been placed around him, like rails guiding a horse into a chute. Caleb stepped away from Atlas slowly and looked at the old South barn. We need to stop thinking this began with Atlas. Evelyn frowned. It began with the bloodline rights. No, Caleb shook his head. That is the money layer. This began when someone decided you would sign under grief and I would obey under shame. Why would anyone know you mattered before this morning? Maybe they didn't. Caleb's eyes narrowed. Or maybe Victor did not hire me by accident. Jamie looked up. What? Caleb turned toward him. How long had Silvergate been trying to fill my position before I came? Jamie rubbed his sleeve across his face. I don't know. Victor said you were a cheap local hire after the last rehab trainer quit. Evelyn's gaze sharpened. The last rehab trainer did not quit. Victor told me the position was eliminated after restructuring, then suddenly reopened it when Atlas started declining. Caleb looked at her. Who recommended me? Evelyn turned to Denise. Denise was already tapping on her tablet, pulling HR file. The night seemed to press closer around the paddock. Atlas shifted beside Caleb, calmer now but exhausted, the sedation leaving his body in waves. Caleb wanted to take the horse to a safe stall, wanted to drive home, wanted to sit beside Lily until morning, wanted to let Red Willow stay buried because shame had a way of feeling like privacy after enough years. Instead, he stood in a field owned by a billionaire and let the old wound become evidence. Denise's tablet pinged. She read silently, then her jaw tightened. Your employment file lists an external recommendation from Hartwell Risk Advisory. Evelyn went still. Hartwell? Yes. That company is tied to Harrison. Caleb nodded slowly. Then I was placed. Jamie whispered. Placed? Caleb looked toward Atlas. Low, status, high access. Quiet man in a barn full of expensive secrets. Maybe they wanted someone with crisis skills close if Atlas became a problem. Maybe they wanted someone with a vulnerable daughter in case control was needed. Maybe both. Evelyn looked sick. I hired you through a system I did not inspect. Caleb's voice did not soften. Yes, she flinched, but she did not defend herself. That mattered. And Red Willow? She asked. Insurance. Against you? Against me becoming inconvenient. Evelyn looked toward the police car again. Harrison knew you might. A man who studies leverage always buys extra rope. Denise stepped closer. Miss Hart, counsel, says Hartwell Risk Advisory handled multiple stable restructuring recommendations, including the facilities contractor, the security camera vendor, and performance insurance review. Evelyn closed her eyes briefly. When she opened them, her CEO face was back, but it no longer looked cold. It looked awake. Freeze every Hartwell contract. Preserve all communications. Notify outside counsel that Harrison's arrest is not an isolated extortion attempt. It is tied to vendor capture, insurance manipulation, personnel placement, and possible witness intimidation. Caleb looked at her. Good. Evelyn turned on him. Do not praise me like a horse. Then stop learning so fast. Jamie made a strangled sound that might have been a laugh, and even Denise looked away to hide a smile. The moment almost helped. Then Officer Grant returned with Mason's first statement. Mason had been told by a Hartwell dispatcher that Atlas was being moved under emergency ownership authorization. He had been given a side gate code, a sedative schedule, and a photograph of the purple sticker with instructions to place it in the stall after removal. He did not know Lily. He did not know Caleb. He had been paid cash through a subcontractor and promised legal coverage. The sticker itself had come in a sealed envelope from Victor. Caleb listened without moving. Evelyn asked, Where did Victor get it? Mason shook his head. I don't know. Caleb did. Or at least he knew the next room. My apartment. Evelyn's face went pale. Someone entered your home. Or the feed store. Or the trash. Or the table where Lily hid it. Caleb, he raised one hand. Do not apologize yet. Apologies slow rooms down when action is required. Then what do you need? Neutral police at Lily's location. A forensic sweep of the apartment and feed store. No Silvergate security inside my home. HR file preserved. Hartwell records frozen. Atlas moved to independent veterinary custody tonight. Evelyn nodded to Denise. Done. Caleb looked at Officer Grant. And I need the Red Willow video entered into the same intimidation file, not treated as media gossip. Officer Grant nodded. Agreed. Evelyn studied him. You are not going home? Every part of him wanted to. Not until Atlas is secure. Your daughter was threatened. His voice dropped. And if I abandon the horse now, they learn Lily moves me faster than law. That makes her less safe. Evelyn absorbed that, horror dawning. They are forcing you to choose. No, Caleb said. They are inviting me to choose badly. The independent veterinarian arrived at 8:04 p.m. A woman named Dr. Amina Patel with a mobile unit, mud on her boots, no patience for rich barn politics, and a manner around Atlas that made Caleb step back after 5 minutes because competence deserved room. She examined the stallion in the lower paddock under soft portable lights, confirmed mild sedation effects, stress response, bruising near the pole from bad tying, and sensitivity around the left shoulder consistent with impact trauma. This horse is not vicious, she said after 40 minutes. He is traumatized, mishandled, and currently smarter than half the people around him. Mrs. Alvarez would have liked her. Evelyn stood near the fence and heard every word as if each one were another nail in the coffin of her previous certainty. Dr. Patel insisted Atlas be transported to an independent medical barn not owned by Silvergate, not associated with Victor, not funded through Hartwell, and not announced publicly. Evelyn agreed. Caleb did not ride in the trailer because he would not let anyone say he controlled the witness. He stood at the loading ramp, turned sideways, and let Atlas choose the step. It took 12 minutes. No ropes pulled, no chains, no flags, just Caleb's quiet voice, Jamie breathing like he was trying not to cry, and a billionaire CEO watching power work without force. When the trailer finally pulled away with police escort, Evelyn said, "I owe you." Caleb shook his head. "You owe him. And your daughter." "Yes. And you." He looked at her then. "Do not make me part of the same sentence as what you owe the horse and my child. Adults choose rooms. Children and animals get placed in them." Evelyn's face tightened because she heard the verdict inside the sentence. "Then help me choose the next room correctly." Hartwell. "Tonight? Now?" Silvergate's main conference room had never held hay dust before. By 9:30 p.m., it held Caleb in his dirty barn jacket, Evelyn at the head of the table, Denise, Officer Grant, outside counsel, Jamie with a blanket over his shoulders, and a growing wall of printed vendor records, insurance memos, HR files, training schedules, and recovered messages. Caleb insisted Jamie sit where he could see the door. He insisted Evelyn not sit in the largest chair because optics mattered even when no cameras were present. She looked annoyed, then moved. Outside counsel looked offended. Caleb did not care. "Name the room," he said. Evelyn looked at him. Conference room. Silvergate Equestrian. Time 9:37 p.m. Present. Owner, counsel, security, police, witness staff, Caleb Reed. Purpose: preserve records related to horse removal, intimidation, vendor capture, and possible fraud. Caleb nodded. "Now we work." They began with Hartwell Risk Advisory. The company appeared in Silvergate records as a risk consulting vendor, but its invoices bled into everything: staff restructuring, camera installation, emergency response planning, insurance valuation, bloodline asset strategy, reputation monitoring, and personnel screening. Caleb's file contained more than a resume. It contained a risk profile: widower, dependent child with medical needs, former crisis negotiator, Red Willow reputational vulnerability, high empathy response, low financial resilience, likely protective compliance if child referenced indirectly. Jamie read one line and cursed. Evelyn looked physically ill. Caleb said nothing for so long that the room became afraid of his silence. Finally, he said, "Print 3 copies." Evelyn stared at him. "That's your response?" "No. My response is happening internally. The record needs copies." Officer Grant watched him carefully. "Caleb, do you need a minute?" "No." That was not a legal question. He looked at her then. Her voice had changed from officer to human. He allowed himself one breath. "If I take a minute, the room becomes about my pain. That is what they want. Print the copies," Evelyn said quietly. "They profiled you like an asset." Caleb looked at the page. "No, they profiled me like a gate. They thought Lily was the latch." Jamie whispered, "I'm sorry." Caleb turned to him immediately. "You did not build this. I didn't stop it. You are stopping it now." Jamie lowered his head and cried without sound. Evelyn looked at Caleb across the table, and he saw her struggling with something that might become respect if guilt did not swallow it first. "Mr. Reed," outside counsel said carefully, "I advise limiting further internal review until we can control exposure." Caleb laughed once, not kindly. Control exposure is how Atlas ended up in a death review. The lawyer stiffened. Evelyn raised a hand. "He's right." The lawyer looked stunned. "Miss Hart, no. Every time someone in this organization says control exposure, I want a second person asking what truth is being delayed." Caleb nodded once. "Good rule." Denise pulled up the insurance memo next. Midnight Atlas's declared instability would have triggered a clause lowering Evelyn's control over breeding rights while activating a private transfer option to a shell company tied to Harrison Bellamy through Hartwell. Victor would receive a performance consulting payout. Dr. Bell would receive an expert fee. A camera vendor would purge routine footage. Maintenance would handle animal transport under emergency authorization. If the plan had worked, Atlas would have been euthanized, the footage erased, Victor paid, Harrison enriched, Evelyn shamed into silence by grief and legacy, and Caleb dismissed as an emotional barn worker who objected too late. They built a chute, Caleb said. Evelyn looked up. A what? A narrow path where every frightened choice leads to the same place. And you broke it. Atlas broke it by refusing to die politely. Jamie wiped his face and gave a shaky laugh. Even Officer Grant smiled faintly. Then Denise's tablet pinged again. Her expression changed. We have a problem. Evelyn closed her eyes. Of course we do. Denise turned the tablet around. A local news site had published the Red Willow clip. Headline: Disgraced crisis negotiator behind Silvergate horse scandal. Under it was an old image of Caleb on a bridge in rain, taken 4 years earlier, grainy and cruelly cropped. The article implied Caleb had inserted himself into the Silvergate incident for attention, that his wife's illness had left him unstable, that he had a pattern of becoming emotionally overattached to crisis subjects, first a child in Red Willow, and now an expensive stallion. It did not mention the tactical order. It did not mention Harrison. It did not mention Lily's sticker. It did exactly what it was designed to do: turn a record into a shadow. The room shifted. Even people who trusted Caleb felt the old human reflex to wonder, to pull back, to protect themselves from someone else's scandal. Caleb watched it happen and did not blame them. Shame worked because rooms were made of people. Evelyn looked at him. We respond now. Caleb shook his head. Not with outrage. This is defamatory. Yes. They attacked your dead wife. Yes. They attacked your daughter by implication. His jaw tightened. Yes. Then why are you calm? Because the article is not the attack. She stared. What is? The attack is making you choose speed over structure. He pointed to the screen. They want an emotional denial, a CEO defending a poor trainer, a quote they can frame as manipulation. They want me explaining Red Willow before we have the county records. They want tonight's evidence buried under my biography. So we do not answer the story they wrote. We answer the room they created. Officer Grant leaned forward. How? Caleb turned to the whiteboard. He wrote with a black marker. Horse safe. Child threat. Hartwell files. Red Willow timing. Public response order. Then he said, first statement, Atlas is alive and under independent veterinary care. Second, a child-related intimidation message is under police investigation. Third, Silvergate has preserved records involving Hartwell, Victor, Bell, Harrison, and insurance manipulation. Fourth, Red Willow materials referenced in the article are part of a separate targeted intimidation pattern and will be addressed with official records, not rumor. No defense of my character, no adjectives, no hero language. Evelyn looked at the board. You want me to say nothing about who you are? Correct. But they are defining you. Let them. For one night, facts move slower than lies, but they leave better tracks. Jamie whispered, That's what you did with Atlas. Caleb looked at him. Yes. Evelyn stood, walked to the window overlooking the dark arena, and stayed there for a long moment. When she turned back, something had changed. Mr. Reed, I looked down on you this morning. The room went very still. Caleb said nothing. Evelyn continued, I saw muddy boots, barn wages, a quiet man with no title, and I let Victor tell me what that meant. Then I watched you preserve a horse, a witness, a staff member, a crime scene, my company, my evidence, and your daughter's safety without once asking the room to admire you for it. Caleb's face remained guarded. This is not a good time for apology. It is not an apology. It is a correction of record. Officer Grant glanced down to hide a smile. Evelyn looked at outside counsel. Prepare the statement exactly as Mr. Reed structured it. No praise, no spin, no reputation management. The lawyer looked like he had swallowed a bridle. Yes, Miss Hart. Caleb's phone buzzed. Mrs. Alvarez sent a photo. Lily asleep on the couch, Sergeant Pickles on her chest, a police cruiser visible through the front window. Under it, she wrote, "Child safe. Soup finished. Rolling pin still undefeated." Caleb stared at the image until he could breathe fully again. Evelyn saw but did not ask to see. That earned her more than any apology would have. At 11:18 p.m., Silvergate released its statement. At 11:24, Officer Grant confirmed the child intimidation file. At 11:31, Dr. Patel confirmed Atlas was alive, medically monitored, and removed from all performance activity. At 11:42, the County Record Office received an emergency preservation request for Red Willow Tactical Communications, body audio, command logs, and settlement correspondence. At 12:07 a.m., the local news article updated quietly, removing the word disgraced, but leaving enough poison to do its work. Caleb expected that. Poison rarely apologized. It diluted itself and pretended the water had always been safe. Near 1 in the morning, after Jamie finally went home with police escort, after Denise locked the vendor files, after Evelyn dismissed everyone but Caleb from the conference room, she placed a folder on the table. "This came from my father's private estate archive," she said. Caleb did not touch it. "Why do you have it here?" "Because Harrison's message mentioned my father's promise." Hartwell was incorporated through one of his old family offices, and this folder was in a box labeled Legacy Risk. Caleb looked at the folder. "What is inside?" "Your name." The words entered him quietly, then spread. "My name?" Evelyn nodded. "A memo from 2 years ago, before Atlas came here, before I hired Victor, before you applied." Caleb stared at the folder as if it were a snake that knew his daughter's room. Evelyn's voice was softer now, but not weak. "It references Red Willow, Hannah's medical debt, Lily's respiratory condition, and something called equine behavioral leverage candidates." Caleb stood very still. "Read the first line." Evelyn opened the folder, and for the first time since Caleb had met her, her hands shook. Subject: Caleb Reed. Potential use case if heart equine asset requires emotional containment. The room went silent, except for the hum of the conference lights. Caleb felt the old world tilt. He had thought he had been placed after Atlas became inconvenient, but this was older, planned, patient. Built before he even knew the horse's name. He looked through the glass toward the dark arena, toward the place where a stallion had nearly died because powerful people built chutes for both animals and men. Then his phone buzzed again. Unknown number. A single message appeared. "Now you understand. Atlas was bait. You were the asset." Caleb looked at Evelyn. She had read it over his shoulder, and all the color drained from her face. A second message arrived before either of them moved. "If you want to know who bought your grief, come to Red Willow."